Today I'm out in the misty forest with what I think is the best three-row EV available in North America. This is the Rivian R1S. Let's talk about what I like and what I don't like on the R1S, because a lot of you have asked for more opinion pieces, and that's the sort of thing you're going to be finding here on the EV Buyer's Guide channel rather than our typical review, which you're going to find over on the Auto Buyer's Guide channel. So if you haven't checked out that one, stay tuned. I'm also going to take a deep dive into child seats over on that channel as well. So let's just dive right into the top things that I like about the R1S first. I actually really like the charge port location. I know that's controversial, but I prefer having it up front. And this is a little bit better having it on the side than directly on the front. So if you do live in an area that's snowy, this is probably not going to be as snowy as the front. It's probably not going to be frozen shut, but it could still get grimy. So let me know what you think about that. I also really love the touch of this charging light bar up front. So you can really tell from a distance exactly what's going on with the truck. There have been so many times where I've plugged in an EV and, I just wasn't quite sure whether it was charging. I did have an EVSE with kind of a loose connector in there, and sometimes it would cause a bit of a problem. I also love the adaptive air suspension that's standard in the R1S. Right now, it's at its highest ride height mode, which is very, very, very high. This is over 15 inches of ground clearance in its high height mode. In fact, all the drive modes actually are quite high on the Rivian R1S, and that's probably the first thing that I would change if I could. I would love to see an R1S with the regular steel spring suspension to help drop costs down. Now, this boxy profile in the back, this is definitely a big advantage to the R1S because back here it means we have a big cargo area in the back and one of the best third rows available in North America for a two-seat position. So there are some wider three-seat third rows out there, but you'll see we have not only top tether anchors for the third row, we also have latch anchors for child seats. Both sides of that third row, that's a really great thing. The third row also has plenty of headroom, partially because we have a separate glass moonroof up there for the third row passengers. That's a really nice touch. And then of course we have this big and accommodating cargo area. Now on the downside, this tailgate, which I do think is pretty handy, is manual close and manual open on a vehicle that's nearly $100,000. So I do think that's a bit of a bummer. If you were to get a Range Rover with this sort of bifold liftgate tailgate thing, they would both be powered. Here, it's just the top that's powered. And while we're back here, in case you're wondering, yes, the light bar in the back pulses green when the vehicle is charging as well. It's not just the light bar up front. That is a really cool touch also. I know this is somewhat controversial, but I do love the fact that we have a real remote in the R1T and the R1S. It's kind of a carabiner style. You can actually open that up and clip it on things. And I love the fact that you can open and close the front and the hatch with the remote. That's a really great touch. The front trunk is nice and large, but you'll notice that the grille area here with the light bar does not open with the lid. That's something that I hadn't considered until I actually had the R1T and the Lightning at the same time. We actually owned both of them here at Auto Buyer's Guide for a while as test vehicles, and I really appreciated that extra ability to lift things in and out. You'll notice this is relatively high off the ground. This is, again, in its highest height setting right now, but even in its lowest height setting, you still have to lift your bags and things over the front, and I did end up scratching the light bar in my R1T as a result. So very practical and handy big cargo area up here with this floor divider, which is also a really nice touch. But I hope that in a future version of the R1T and R1S, they actually make the entire grille move. Now, it's not just the third row that's big. The second row in the R1S is also pretty large and accommodating. Really some great features here too, like the shoulder belt that comes out of the seat back itself, not out of the ceiling. That's a great touch. We also have a big fold-down armrest with a tiny storage compartment in there. These second row seats do recline. You can actually give a pretty decent recline to them, or you can make them more upright. And if you look over here, you'll notice that this is a 40-20-40 folding second row seat. So you can fold this center section down right there like that, and then you can put those longer cargo items right into the vehicle. The one downside though is that these seats do not move in such a manner to allow you to leave a latch anchored child seat in position. You'll notice, and that's because it tilts and then slides, so you couldn't leave one of those child seats there. But as you can see, we have those latch anchors in the third row, really practical and plenty of room back there. Not quite as much legroom as you might think. This is about Toyota Highlander kind of legroom, but as far as headroom and width in the third row, this is among the best. Now, these second row seats are also pretty heavy, so kids might have a problem moving them and flipping and folding them. And if I just try and scoot this seat forward with one hand, you can see it actually is pretty heavy there. And even in this relatively upright position for the second row seat, you're really just left with kids that could squeak back there into the third row if you had a child seat latch anchored into place. I do think that's a bit of a mistake. But I also like the fact that we have USB-C charge ports there and some hangers for whatever you might want to hang there. Now on the inside, because Rivian really wanted to go in a Tesla-like direction, I'm not sure if this is a big deal to all of you, but you can't just leave the car on. You have to hop in the car and put your foot on the brake pedal to actually start up the vehicle basically every time. That was definitely something I noticed while trying to film the car because everybody wants to see headlights and things like that. That's not something that's easy to show. Now, I love the big touchscreen. I love the fact that we have a separate instrument cluster over here for the driver. I like that touch. But I think they need CarPlay. This system actually is done quite well. The audio interface is relatively nice. Of course, you can stream from your Bluetooth phone, but it doesn't offer the audio quality you'd get out of Android Auto or CarPlay. I really think that they could just do that in a small sub window somewhere, and I think that would be fantastic. Other thing that I should note while we're up here, no heat pump in the Rivian R1T and R1S. So these are just resistive element heaters. So you'll notice that in winter weather, this is going to use a considerable amount more energy than some of those other newer EVs with heat pump technology. On the plus side, I really love the dashboard design. The wood trim is done really well. I'm not a big fan of air vents that you adjust on the screen though. So you actually have to drag these air vents around when the system is on. You drag them around like that. That's how you move air around. I wish we just had regular old air vents. Also, no glove compartment there. Storage is actually at a premium in the R1S. We have a almost flat floor, not quite flat floor here, big area that's open there. We have the camp speaker that pulls out of the center console, 2 cup holders there, but that's really all the storage you get. And then we get this relatively small storage compartment right here in the center console. This seems very bulky for the relatively small amount of storage space that you actually get inside the R1S and the R1T. Also worth noting, you adjust the steering column, the trailer brake controller, and the side view mirrors with these buttons and knobs on the steering wheel. So this is normally the volume control. You can see that volume slider going up and down. But if I want to adjust some things, then I actually have to go over here into the system. I hit the button for the owner of the vehicle. It is Sam. Then I get steering wheel adjustment. Then I can use these controls to adjust the reach and the tilt of the steering wheel. I do think that's a little convoluted. I would just prefer some extra buttons. But Rivian doesn't make us use any sort of touchscreen controls or anything like that for the turn signals. We get a regular old turn signal stock, actual headlight control, controls for the wipers, etc., and a regular old shifter over there on that side. The column shifter definitely helps debulk the dashboard a bit. Now, in case you're wondering, the rear seat passengers get actual real air vents that move around, quad zone climate control. You can see the 2 different climate controls down there. Actually, I guess you could call it 5-zone climate control because the third row has its own climate control zones, but there's actually something a little bit kooky going on here with these. These air vents right here on the pillars, great location for them. However, they only move side to side. You can't actually adjust the air up and down. I do think that's a little bit weird. While I'm complaining, I should mention the fact that we don't have a shade for this big glass roof. Yes, it is UV reflective, but you still will tend to feel like you're in a greenhouse if it's a really hot day. That's certainly a concern for people that live in the South. If you live in an area like Phoenix or Houston or areas where you get a lot of sun and a lot of heat, you might really want to think twice about this, or you might really want to invest in some sort of reflective coating on the outside of the vehicle or some sort of insulative glue-on headliner or something like that for the inside. I talk about this more in the drive section, but one other thing I dislike about the Rivian is that we still don't have blended braking. We do have actual big brakes though, which is a really nice touch, so you can see those big meaty yellow brakes in there, but no blended braking system. So all you get is throttle lift-off regen like you find in modern Teslas. There are no paddle shifters on the back of the steering wheel or anything like that to help you adjust the throttle lift-off regen as you're going downhill. I do think that's a bit of a misstep. It's something that I would really love Rivian to address in future vehicles, but we just don't see that at this point in time in the Rivian lineup. Again, if you want to know how the Rivian drives, if you want to know more about the child seat fitment, the pricing, etc., be sure and stay tuned for the full video coming up on the Auto Buyer's Guide channel. I will say that I think Rivian's pricing is pretty much spot on, and that may upset some shoppers because this is by no means a cheap SUV, but I think that Rivian has priced it honestly pretty well. I'll see all of you later.